Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and this is quite a big episode where we're doing a full suspension refresh. We've got new Bilstein shocks with Einbach springs. We've also got a polybush kit from Powerflex. We've got all the associated ancillaries that go along with that. You'll see as well that I needed to buy some more bushes because I didn't buy enough. So here's the unpacking. And this is a set you get where you get the back end bushes. So I'm probably going to do the rear beam as a separate video because this video will be a bit long otherwise. So you get the rear beam bushes there, you get the front engine mount bush, which I probably won't do because I've already got a heavy duty mount on mine already. So I'm going to focus on these wishbone. Those are the back of the wishbone and these are the front of the wishbone. And you'll see with Powerflex, all the bushes are two-part with, well, apart from that one, with a steel insert. So it just means installing them is much, much easier. So wheels off, brake caliper off, hanging up there. We're also going to have to take off the brake caliper strut. Get out of the way, dog. And I've also got a lower bar on mine, an OMP strengthening bar strut brace, so I've taken that off. That's 19mm very long bolts that go through there. You can see the old bush, and then here's the old wishbone, and you can see that the anti-roll bar bushes have had it, particularly those ones, so we're going to have to order those as well. Quick note on jacking up: there's a little round factory mounting point where you want to jack up because you're not going to be able to jack up on your wishbones because you're going to be taking those off. So that just shows it on the other side. I mean, put the jack against the wishbone bracket there to lift it, but then put the actual axle stands under those round areas. We're going to have to undo these bolts here. Going to undo the nut and bolt there, and that's under tension, so you just need to push it down. You don't have to worry about this popping off and smacking you in the face. Once you loosen a few things off, it loosens up. There it is. So that bush has had it. The inner bushes are actually pretty good, but they're more protected. The outer bushes, I guess, get all the muck off the wheels. But we're doing all the bushes, and we're going to get the anti-roll bar powder coated to make it look lovely. Clean up all these brackets, get some new nuts and bolts and bits and bobs, tidy it all up, make it look spanky, and get those main chassis brackets powder coated as well. In terms of taking the wishbone off, you've got a front and back mounting point. Sorry, it's just out of shot there. So I've taken off the chassis bracket, and then the front one where that big long 19mm bolt goes through, you just have to give it a tug and a wiggle, pull it out. You also need to undo the pinch bolt, so that drops down. Again, not going to show you every nut and bolt, it's just normal spannering, and then that'll come out. So you can see the 3 points there, the back, the front and the wheel. So just a triangle. And there's the recess which holds the bush. It is quite hard to get the new bush back in there, we'll see that later. And there's the rear mounting where the main chassis anti-roll bar bracket, the ones we're going to get powder coated, go. Just showing you the difference here, going back to what I was saying about the two-part bush. So we're going to have to pull the old bush out, but when you put the new bushes in, they just go in two halves and then you push the steel through. They are slightly different sizes. There's a B and an A to this. That's because one end of the mounting is flared, as you can see, so you need to get the larger one in the flared end. And then the back one, pretty equivalent, that's just going to slide on. The flat part will go up against the chassis and the round part will go inside the bracket. So time to get those off. Give them a soak the night before if you can with a bit of something. I actually got these out quite easily. This one, which is the more difficult one, just kind of came out. The way I did it was just to get an old spark plug, socket fitting, put it on, kind of hold it on the bench and whack it with a hammer. You just need to be careful when you do that you don't let your hammer claw hit the top edge of the wishbone there. The other one, just put it in a vise, wiggle it around. It'll probably pop out a few times and a bit more lube, and eventually it will come out. Again, that back one wasn't terrible, but we're polybushing everything, so we're going to make it. Treat the rust, a bit of hammerite back to black, just let it dry, cleaned it all up, pretty good. Mocked up the new ones, so using the assembly, well, I didn't even need the assembly grease, but put a bit on. You do grease everything so you don't get squeaks, but that goes on pretty neat and tidy. So that wishbone is ready to go on. You just need to do it again for the other side as well. And then we had a slight diversion because we were underneath the car having a look, and then we noticed this on the gearbox side, the CV boot completely gone. Still grease in there, not a lot to come out really on that side. It's quite protected as it connects to the gearbox, but it is truly split. Someone's been here before with a zip tie. So anyway, after a bit of trial and error, got the right part, which is this nice Febby Bilstein part. Don't order the things where the boot's on its own without the metal ring, because that's wrong and it will never fit. There it is fitted. You can see you have to add on these bolts. You need an M8. It's like a 12-point star, can't remember the name for it, but you put that in there and do them up, and then you do them up and realise that you hadn't put the load spreaders under the bolts, which you're now going to see. That was me just showing where I treated some bits of rust, and I'd also painted the back of the engine block because it was getting a bit rusty while I was there. Just reached, well, I took the drive shaft out, so it was easier to reach up and just paint that up. And there's the really annoying little load spreaders. So I forgot to reinstall those with the 6 bolts. So you get one goes between each of the 2 bolts like that. So you got 6 bolts, 3 spreaders, just to spread the load as you tighten up those bolts. And I forgot those, so I had to undo all that and do it up again. There they are. I think it's 40 to 50 Newton meters, all back on. So as is always the case, one job leads to another. So ended up spending quite a bit of time fiddling around with CV boots and painting the back of engine blocks. But anyway, back to it. Getting the wishbone back in. I can't tell you how hard it was to get this very tough new bush to go into that front slot. You just need to persevere with it. Probably the best way, looking back, would have been to remove the hub and then gently hammer on the wheel end of the wishbone, but I hadn't done that, so I had to kind of gently hammer it and lever it in. It was a pain. Once you've done that, anyway, get the pinch bolt back up inside the wheel hub. Just showing you the pinch bolt there with the bolt out. You can see it does split in the middle, so you might need to slightly lever that, and then you can do that back up. Anyway, here's where we are. We've just taken out the 2 new top mount bolts and slotted in the new suspension. The good thing is I took my old suspension out in one piece and I've got the new suspension already assembled, so it just slid in with those 2 top bolts, so that saved any teeth smashing spring release moments. Comparing the new and the old, obviously the newer stuff's in better nick. I think as well that the strut is a bit shorter, or the spring's a bit shorter rather. I'll be interested to see how this performs. There's a few less coils on that spring by the looks of it. I did read someone say it's too soft, you'll bounce around, but we'll see. I suppose I could take the old springs off and put them in the new strut, but we'll see how we get on. Sprayed up the drive shafts while we were there, bit of Rust-Oleum, and then here you can see that we've put the 19mm bolt back in. It's really important that you make sure that bolt will go through your new bush and into the chassis leg. If you don't, you're not going to be able to do everything up. It was very fiddly, that's all I can say. You'll just have to stick with it and wiggle the wishbone around. Here are the new anti-roll bar bushes we ordered because we needed those too. I remember I had a look and they were well perished, particularly the outer ones. Interestingly, the newer ones seem quite a bit wider and they don't have a ridge on them. My anti-roll bar has a ridge on the end, so yeah, going to see what happens there. That causes some problems later on. Putting the bushes back on is just a case of kind of lubing up the anti-roll bar. Obviously you've got one bush, the inner bush, that you're going to have to get to go around that curve where my finger is at the moment. It's just a case of lubing everything up. They went on pretty easily. I know some people have said online it was really hard to get them on. It wasn't for me, and you just kind of roughly position them up and get them there. The end one, as I say, is quite loose, seemingly a bit too loose, and you'll see later on that I don't think they're tight enough, but I'm not really sure, so I don't know if you know anything about that. You can see the old ones, they kind of have a ridge in the middle, which tucks into the ridge towards the end of the anti-roll bar. New ones don't, and they're a bit wider. I have read online that you don't really tighten up the anti-roll bar until it's on the floor, so we'll see. Slight diversion, doing some plating, so a bit of zinc solution that I've got, where I did a little bit of passivating, if that's the word before. If you're going to do this, you really need to clean up the parts, get all the rust off them. So these are the little spring brackets that go over the anti-roll bar bush on the main chassis, and these are the wishbone brackets that bolt down near the wheels. So I gave those a clean up, put them through the zinking process for a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was. Kind of cleaned up the bolts and everything a bit. Got some new hardware in there. So it looks nice, very clashy, purple and red, wow. But got some new bolts. So it looks quite smart, powder coated. That bracket came up nice. I've just done it all up quite loosely, because again, I was advised that you really want to do all this up when the car's on the floor, although I'm not sure how I'm going to do that because I can't get under the car when it's on the floor because it's too low. Anyway, you can see the anti-roll bush, the anti-roll bar is actually poking out that bush quite a long way. And then what we're going to do here is just we're going to put on the strut bolts. So the top one is cambered. Now what you want to do before you undo your suspension is kind of mark a line on it. Now I'm not putting the same suspension struts on, so I'm not really sure if my line will line up on the new struts, but either way you normally have alignment, don't have to work like this. But you can see that white line I drew against the old strut, so trying to line those up. And then just going back to these pinch bolts, they were quite hard to do. Yeah, dog's helping, cheers for that, lovely. I kind of needed to use a jack and a special foot technique to try and push that knuckle back up inside that split joint. It's not very easy. Again, if I had taken off the dust shield, it would have been easier, but me being me, I decided to work awkwardly. You can see it's going wonky already, but if you straighten it up with a spanner, you can pop it in, and then you do it up. Make sure you do that up nice and high and tight, because that is literally holding your hub to your wishbone. I used all the Newton meter torque settings from the Haynes manual, so you can do that. This is how to do it on the other side. Get a block of wood so you don't snag on your dust shield, and then kind of push it up so that knuckle goes up inside that split bolt. So going back to the anti-roll bar, I've kind of bolted it down with the new cleaned up brackets, and you can see that it looks okay, that side, that looks quite nice, but then you'll see the issue we have is that it doesn't come through the other wishbone as well. I'm not really sure why, if I'm honest. I tried to move the wishbone over. Oh, and I thought I had to take the wheel hub off, and I managed to split my tie rod end boot as well, so I need to replace that. So anyway, you can see the anti-roll bar bush on one side looks pretty happy, but on the other side it's like virtually popping out. So if you've got any bright ideas about that, I'm out of ideas. I am literally just going to put the wheels back on and see what lowering the weight of the wheels does. It will push the wishbone up and obviously compress the suspension with the weight of the vehicle, so I'm hoping the anti-roll bar will then slip back in and I can do it up. So after a few checks on forums, we've put the wheels back on, and we can see that the anti-roll bar fits in this bush on the driver's side pretty nicely, so happy with that. So the vehicle's back on weight, even though it's on ramp still. However, on the other side, it's still only just in there, so I'm still really not happy about that. A couple of people have suggested, could it be bent? Is it the original roll bar? Yes, original roll bar. Just went for powder coating, so I don't think the powder coater's bent it. Anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll leave that sitting. So that's really the front of the car done now. I didn't film it, but I ended up needing a new front caliper as well, because the bleed nipple wouldn't seat and seal, so we were always losing brake fluid, so we've done that. Ride height is about the same as it was before on the old shocks, So we'll see what happens. We'll let it bed in for a bit. So the next video is going to be the back end. So that'll be putting in the back shocks and springs, which we've got there, and also we'll be rebushing the beam, which should be a fairly quick job. It's just one bush each side. I haven't done the front engine mount. I'm also going to do the rear brake shoe as well, because that's leaking. So hopefully we'll have better suspension and better braking by the end of it all. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I know I asked some questions as well, but that's part of being part of a car community. So let me know your thoughts and comments, especially on that anti-roll bar, and see you for the next one. As ever, like and subscribe would really help, and any comments on videos you'd like to see. Cheers!